Hello, everyone, and welcome to LabStats Tech Talk. I'm Derrick Hirschi, Technical Support Specialist here at LabStats, and I'm joined today by Troy Martin, CIO of BYU-Pathway Worldwide. Thank you for being here, Troy. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So the BYU Pathway Worldwide program provides online higher education to students all around the world. We're really excited to have you here to talk about online learning, Troy, especially in light of the current COVID-19 pandemic. The universities everywhere are being suddenly thrust into the position of having to create an online program that's much more robust than they've ever had to consider before. And I'm really excited to learn more about your program considering all this. So let's get started first with an overview on the scope of your organization. Can you kind of give me an idea, kind of how many students you got? What does your program look like?
Yeah, happy to. So BYU Pathway Worldwide is a separate legal entity within what we call the church education system. We are affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Other institutions include BYU, Idaho. We are BYU Pathway Worldwide. We are an online university that focuses primarily in helping those students who either started college or are unable to go to college, to basically give them the skills that they need to be successful if they choose to matriculate and go online. So we are organized in over 100 countries. We have roughly 40,000 students, and those are split primarily between those who are taking a program we call Pathway Connect, which is a preparatory program, and those who are matriculated currently at BYU Idaho who are seeking certificates and degrees. The rest are made up of those who are learning English as a second language. So we really have three different programs: Pathway Connect, English Connect, and then the online degrees from BYU Idaho.
Okay, perfect. And so remind me again, how many students was that you had in your organization?
We roughly have just under 100,000 students, and 40,000 of those are doing Pathway Connect in BYU Idaho online, and the rest are going through our English Connect program.
Okay. And what does your organization look like behind the scenes? How many employees, how many instructors do you have, just as a ballpark?
Yeah, so that's kind of the secret sauce, if you will, to BYU Pathway. We have about 70 employees, and those we have our leadership council. We have area managers who are responsible for managing different sections of the globe, all the activities going on. Then we have about 1,500 service missionaries who help facilitate our gatherings. And then we have about 2,400 instructors.
So Troy, why would you say that BYU Pathway operates so extensively in markets where students, or you could say customers have less ability to pay? Is there a kind of a cost benefit analysis behind that, or is it because of a more humanitarian focus you guys hold?
Yeah, that's a great question, Derek. I think it is the more humanitarian focus. We believe strongly that education and obtaining professional certificates and working towards a degree not only lifts a person who has been left behind. We don't think it's just a great opportunity, to get students from all around the world. We feel a moral responsibility to provide education, to provide something that will allow someone to go get a better job, to support their family, to support their neighborhood. Education lifts, and there's plenty of studies that are out there. But more than that, I mean, what we have seen is it provides confidence. It provides a very positive aspect to a student's life. I mean, and it drives our students. I really think that anyone who has, as a product, if you will, as a product or a service, education is your product or service. I think you have a moral responsibility to provide that in areas of the world where, that population has been left behind. Even here domestically in the United States, there are millions of people who have started a degree and life got in the way, and for whatever reason they had to opt out or to pause or suspend their studies, and they're left with not just hundreds of hours of student credit hours, but they don't have a degree, they don't have anything to show for it except maybe student debt. And I think those people, the people who have started and life interrupted their education for whatever reason, I think as institutions we have a moral responsibility. BYU Pathway Worldwide absolutely believes this, and we work with third-party companies as well. I mean, there's groups out there like Pluralsight who are providing education in parts of the world, where the devices that they have, the infrastructure such as bandwidth or internet connectivity that they have, or that those parts of the world where we don't have a screaming fast Apple laptop and 5G networks. I mean, BYU Pathway Worldwide is leading this, I believe, but I think that everybody has a moral responsibility to do the same.
So getting to the meat of the matter here then, after getting the background on you guys, we're seeing an unprecedented move towards distance, alternative, and online learning with the COVID-19 pandemic here going on right now. If you were a CIO at a university that's trying to get their distance learning programs off the ground or even just up to date, what ideas stick out to you as important?
Yeah, and that's a timely question right now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's on everybody's mind. Everybody's discussing it. We've got our own remote access tool that we're working on to help universities get there, but it requires a totally different mindset than your small scale online learning to supplement on campus, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah, online learning isn't new. It's been around for a long time. I think it's been a novelty for a lot of institutions, something that was kind of interesting or nice to have. There are institutions who do it really well, WGU, Arizona State Online. But at BYU Pathway, this is our DNA. I mean, we have to serve the hidden many, those people who cannot physically get to a campus. And so literally in the systems and the applications and our architecture, we built BYU Pathway from the ground up, thinking online, thinking remote. And there's two components, right? I mean, there's the academic aspect, the actual teaching and learning, but then there's all the administrative systems on the back end. So those two go hand in hand, and I'm happy to deep dive into either of those or both.
Yeah. I mean, especially I think I'd like to talk a bit about both, but especially the background, the support system stuff, because that's where I think a lot of universities are starting to run up against a wall here. They got teachers who have the content, but the question is, how do you build the backbone to get it out there reliably?
Yeah. So if you think about all of the support systems that institutions have, and then if you think about, I mean, even just start with the concept of a campus. Where do students gather? How do they gather? Most campuses have a student center or a commons area. Online, our commons or our student center literally is our portal, our BYU Pathway student portal. And that portal is more than just a web page. I mean, it really is a one-stop shop for all of the different services that you need in order to provide an online experience, that you need in order to provide an online institution. And yeah, there's got to be ways to pay. There's got to be fees. There's got to be ways to get access to your textbooks. But on the other side, there's mentoring. There's support, and there's advising. I mean, those three systems we've had to build from the ground up, using industry best practices and technologies. We use a lot of the stuff that we do for support is built on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform for our mentoring and for our support. Just an example is we had a call center that was located downtown Salt Lake City, and with COVID-19, we're forced to move all those agents home. And anyone listening knows what's involved in that. and you've got to have move hardware and headsets and VPN. But gratefully, our partners and the people that we have been working with for the last 2 years were ready, and we were able to respond. And all of our support agents, our advising team, and our academic advising, and then also our mentors, those who are assigned to reach out to students who are struggling or having a hard time.
So the idea behind the portal isn't just to give students, access to, their textbooks, like you were saying. It's to connect them together and provide them with all the resources in a well-designed and easy to use format. Because you got students all over the world using this portal. It's got to make sense to all of them.
It has to make sense to all of them, and you used the keyword connect. When they come to the portal, they are looking to either connect with classmates, they're either looking to connect with advisors, they're looking to connect with someone who can help them answer a question. And so we have built technology on the back end, chat bots that plug into it's a simple AI engine that's learning about the different types of chats that are going on, and our responses are getting better every week. So we can't scale with the number of students that we have with people. And so in addition to those teams that we had to relocate, we also are leaning into the infrastructure that we've built around chatbot and AI.
So finding ways to automate things has been key then, finding ways to be more hands-off and let the system run itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would have loved to test this for another year or so, but COVID-19 did not allow us to do that. So it was like, okay, here we go.
You guys are in a better position than many for that. How long have you guys been doing this for?
We have been doing this really for about 10 months in controlled pilots and tweaking and working with students and advisors and mentors, and this just thrust us all the way in. It's like, if we're going to be able to scale, gratefully it's happened in the middle of a semester. A lot of the busy time for other institutions and for us is right around the end of semester when you're doing grade submission and when you're registering for the next semester. And so all of that's coming up here in about 2 weeks. So we're gearing up for another wave. The first wave was just answering COVID and converting all of our gatherings to be online.
Because they weren't all online, right? You had specific. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't most of your students still meet together in a group at some point?
So the way, historically, Pathway Connect gatherings were every Thursday evening, and they were organized geographically in the city or town in which you live. And once a week, you'd get together, you'd help, you go through. You do presentation assignments, you get some help from the support missionaries. But we had to convert about 40% of our gatherings were still online about a month ago. And now we've had to move all of those to what we call virtual gatherings. So.
Okay, interesting. So put yourself in the shoes of a CIO at a university who doesn't have the background working on this for as long as you guys have. Is there any advice you give to someone who suddenly found themselves thrust into this situation where they got to find some stuff and make it work?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is to work with your university sponsors in the areas that I've mentioned. I think IT is in a unique situation right now to go and ask for support in order to improve the online experience. I think, and if I were a CIO, obviously right now you're responding and adapting to the current conditions. Mm-hmm. But after COVID-19, if you dare to even visualize, when this is over, I don't think the world's going to be the same as it was pre-COVID-19. I think a lot of people are going to realize that we can do a lot of things online. And I think it's really important for a CIO to reach out to his or her sponsors on campus and find and visualize that world post-COVID-19 and look at areas where you're currently deficient or struggling and work to buoy those up.
So you're saying don't just plug the holes, right? We need to build something that's going to last longer than just making it work until this is over.
Yeah, I think every CIO right now has been in triage mode, just trying to get systems up and running, trying to get classrooms back online, teaching instructors how to do so, how to use, your LMS online, or how to use Zoom online, or BlueJeans, or whatever application that you're using. But post COVID-19, I think you really have to focus on the student experience and, the instructor experience. What will be offered online after this crisis, and what things do you already have in place, and where are you deficient? I think one area that we're looking at, our AI is plugged into our LMS, and so we are monitoring, for example, when students log in, what assignments they're doing, where they're deficient. We're doing sentiment analysis on discussion boards, and we're gathering this type of online usage data and generating a score for a student, and that score signals to a mentor or an advisor. This student's doing really well, they're active, but the other side, this student's struggling, they haven't logged in 2 weeks. Maybe it's time to reach out, maybe it's time to communicate, and how and when and who is assigned to help online students, to reach out and support and lift. Those are all systems where I think a lot of institutions are going to look heavily at to find out, to be proactive, not wait for a student to call. So that's one idea.
And it is a totally different thought process too, because learning online is not at all, it's really only so comparable to learning on campus. There's a lot more, you need a lot more structure in your life, you need a lot more discipline. And I think a lot of students are starting to find out the hard way. It's hard to stay focused when you're sitting, in your bedroom or on your couch with a laptop trying to do your schoolwork when you got so much else going on. You're in a classroom, you're not in a study hall, you're not in a library. Many of us working from home are realizing the same thing. It takes discipline. And so I think you're probably right with, making sure there are support systems in place to reach out to those who might be struggling with that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And, for an instructor, not to be able to necessarily look out into a lecture and see into the faces of students to see if they're getting it, or
there you go.
They need to raise their hand. I mean, there's the whole pedagogical in-class experience now. Ironically, we have found that, when a student is using Zoom in class, they can't look away or fall asleep. I mean, they're staring at a live camera. Right. So, but it still takes discipline now, self-paced, to do your homework, to participate in, assignments. So
interesting. So it sounds to me like you're saying you think we're going to see a permanent shift towards online and distance learning rather than returning back to whatever you might call a previous level of normal.
I think so. Whether we like it or not, COVID-19 has forced everyone to work remotely, either at their jobs or in their school. And everything that we were used to doing in person, we are now learning to adapt and respond from a distance perspective. I mean, I don't know. I mean, every crisis that we've had, it seems to me that we rarely go back to how things were, quote, normal. Yeah. I don't know what that new normal is, but what I do know is everyone now is working remotely, learning remotely, supported remotely. And to what degree that stays 100% remote versus, some mixture, I don't know. But I do know that our customers, our students and faculty are going to realize, yeah, this is doable. I mean, and yeah, there's ways we could do it better. And yes, with planning and doing all the things that CIOs do to design and to architect systems correctly. if given more support and given the resources, I think the overall experience online can be improved. So it'll be exciting and interested to see, that pendulum, how far it comes back a little bit.
Do you think this will be, if we move more into an online learning kind of a world, do you think that'll be more of a net positive or a net negative?
I think it's a net positive, and I think it's a net positive in two ways, especially for institutions. I think that it allows institutions to accommodate more students, believe it or not. If you're not limited by classroom space, I think that you can have more students go through your system. But I also have to believe it would improve graduation rates. Whereas, a student needs to take the following 2 classes that aren't offered until next semester on Tuesday, Thursday at 10. Maybe they can take it online and graduate sooner. So I think the throughput, more students going through quicker, I think are 2 affordances, if you will, on learning and teaching online. So those are 2 areas I think will be very interesting.
Okay. And I mean, there's some element too now of just students nowadays are already used to doing things online, right? Where the millennial generation, call it what you will, they're so used to everything just being at their fingertips all the time that I think once they get used to, hey, we can do this whole school thing online too, why are they, are they going to want to come back to on campus?
I absolutely agree. I mean, the entire generation right now is used to doing everything online. And what's really interesting is our students, about 50% of our students, 60% are international, and they don't have laptops and they don't have gigabit 5G speeds. I mean, we have students who are doing term papers on smartphones.
That sounds like it would
3G.
take forever.
It takes forever, but you know what? I mean, we could have a talk or a discussion about the importance of education and how getting a degree or a certificate improves the likelihood of getting a job and earning money. And that motivation alone, I mean, to bring them out of a situation that they're currently in, whether it's, here in the United States or Canada or even internationally, that notion of being able to get an education online drives them to do things that just boggle my mind. So it's not just, the rising generation or the millennials or whoever, but getting and, purchasing and accomplishing things online is here. And I absolutely believe they're going to demand that opportunity going forward, and they'll find it. You can either offer it or they'll walk. They'll take their thumbs and their device and go get it somewhere else.
Somebody else will offer it.
I think so.
And I think there's some element too of it. It'll remove borders and barriers in a way. You can suddenly access a potential student pool way beyond what you could have given your geographical location, because that ceases to matter as much.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it also brings another set of problems, especially in managing student personal information across borders. We're going to have to get smarter with, FERPA in the United States. We're going to have to get smarter in managing personal information like phone numbers and names.
Yeah, because every country's got different laws.
Every country's got different laws, but again, it's something you have to be aware of. It's something you have to acknowledge and plan for it.
Because it was coming down the road anyways. It's just moves the timetable up on us a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a bit about the difference between this happening now versus 5 to 10 years ago. How have possibilities expanded from what you guys see? Because I know you guys have been doing this official program for the last 10 months, but you guys have been doing online learning for much longer than that, right? With the BYU Idaho program where this started.
Yeah, this started at BYU Idaho, and BYU Pathway Connect was an online offering. It's an online option to students who couldn't make it to campus. And I mentioned earlier, this is part of the DNA. I mean, a lot of employees at BYU-Pathway, who've been here for the full 10 years that this has been a program, have been serving students remotely. And that brings an entirely different set of opportunities, but it also brings some challenges. And it's been really interesting to see in the last 5 to 10 years, just even in the last 3 to 5 years, the technologies that are now available, the bandwidth that's available, the smartphones that are available. I can't imagine trying to do a term paper on a Razor
or
a Moto Razor or a BlackBerry. I mean, everything has kind of moved. I don't know how we would do COVID-19 5 years ago. I don't think that the technologies and just the infrastructure was in place at that time.
Certainly wasn't as pervasive for people to look at it and go, oh, we could make this work. I think everyone would have said, well, guess we're done for the semester.
Guess we're done for the semester. Whereas it's going to be a really interesting study after this is over to go back and find out what the response was and how institutions were able to keep the lights on, and how that pendulum was always drifting between in class and online, but it got slammed all the way to online here with COVID-19 to see where that pendulum ends up on the way back, and then what new innovations and technologies emerge. It's, in a way, when this is over, it will be exciting to find out how we respond.
So the BYU-Pathway Worldwide student body presents a number of special challenges in regards to tools and technology. In what ways might your technology stack or your focus be different from a traditional university that's trying to implement distance-based learning programs now?
Oh, that's an excellent question. It's really interesting. I think, originally we designed our technology stack with a student in mind who has a good laptop, good internet connectivity, and the applications that we use work well, when there's good hardware, good software, and good bandwidth available to connect. But what's been really interesting over the last few months is that technology stack doesn't necessarily translate or doesn't travel very well to specific situations that we have. I mean, we are in Ghana, for example, in Africa, and we heard of a story where internet connectivity was sparse, and we have a student that literally would have to do things like climb a tree or get on a building or something in order to get 1 or 2 bars so they can connect and upload their homework or download the next assignment. We have stories in the South Pacific of in order to free up bandwidth on the island, a man will ride his bike with a bell around it, and that bell basically means log off. The Pathway students need to connect right now. And it's remarkable. And you start hearing stories like that. We have a software vendor that we use, and it's AWS enabled. It's a very popular learning management system. But when you go to Haiti or when you go to parts of Brazil, and it takes 40 to 90 seconds to load a page of that LMS, it just really told us that we got to do a better job. I mean, and look at things like how do we not demand that our students are 100% connected? Is there a way that they can go to internet cafe and get their assignments, put them on a flash drive, go home and work on them, come back and upload them? Is there a way that we don't have to have students climb a building or get in a tree that's closer than a building so they can connect? And places of the world where just the conditions that a lot of the students around the world live right now demand that we do a better job as technologists, as CIOs, to really architect and deliver systems that are lightweight, but that don't sacrifice the learning experience.
And I think it's interesting that you'll see, we think, oh my goodness, I can't get internet connection right now. This is awful. And then there's this guy over here out there climbing a tree every day just to get bars, and he thinks he's the luckiest guy in the world because he actually has the chance.
Yeah, and it really just speaks to the drive, the commitment, the persistence that these students have, the grit. I mean, they want this education more than anything in the world. This education is their opportunity. It's their ticket to a better life, to a better job, to provide for themselves, their families, their communities. And they'll do whatever. They'll go to whatever means and ends necessary to get that. And so I think as CIOs that work in higher ed, I think that we really ought to look at how do we provide the education and the services that we provide to everyone. I think it's a moral responsibility. And you can even argue, you know, the people that live here in the United States who stopped and like we mentioned before, who life got in the way, how do they take what they've already done and convert it to a professional certificate or something they could take to an employer? I just think we're in a critical time right now. We have the technology, better technology will emerge in the next year or two. But I think we have a moral responsibility to take our content, to leverage the technology that we have and that will come, and look for the hidden many, those students who are still out there that can benefit from education.
So do you think this whole shift we're seeing, do you think this would have taken place without a pandemic, without, you know, COVID-19 suddenly shocking the world into action? Would we be here eventually?
Purely speculation, but I think, I mean, I think the younger, the 18 to 30 age group right now, and even those that are going to enter that age group in the next 5 years, I think they are used to doing things online. I think that the expectation of being able to take a class when and how they want, I think those things were already kind of in that mindset. I think we kind of have already seen that. I think if you look at the data from the last 3 years, enrollment at community colleges and universities, you know, just look at the numbers. I think that market, if we were to call students a market and customers, I think that customer market was already leaning towards us in a way. And it's absolutely awful what's going on with this disease. But in a way, it's really forced institutions in higher ed and K-12, I mean, to really think about how they provide services in a way, in a modality that these students are demanding and have, I think, will demand more going forward. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point. I mean, I've even just K through 12 is going to see some of these changes, and you know, I don't mind sharing. You know, my daughter she's in kindergarten, and she's now doing online school. Do you ask me a year ago? I never would have even thought you could possibly do a kindergarten classroom online, and yet here we are. It's you know, it's early going. We're working through the kinks and everything, but she's not out education now because we can't go anywhere.
Yeah, she's not out of education. If you think about the way we were raised, I mean, we were raised, don't talk to strangers, don't get in a car from strangers, don't take food from strangers. But
don't talk to anybody online.
We live in an Uber world, a DoorDash world, an Airbnb world. All we do is stay at places in people's houses that we don't know and take food from people we don't know. And but that mindset, that psychology for the 18 to, I mean, they're used to that. Don't get in a car with a stranger, you know, unless it's an Uber. Oh, but then why does that infrastructure exist and they trust getting in that and apply that concept of a trust network, you know, in those 3 areas?
Yeah, I remember never. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, hospitality and food and just all the services that we do online. Now think about that concept in education.
Yeah, I remember, like, for example, I remember never give your birthday out online, ever. Well, never. Now you can't do half of anything without giving your birthday out online. And it's just normal now.
Yeah, and then when it is your birthday, you get 4,000 happy birthday messages online. So
Yeah, yes, it's the brightest
it's
day of my
wonderful.
year.
I love that Ford Motor Company is wishing me a happy birthday. Thank you.
So you think this generation would have pushed us down this path anyways, and now that they see more online, that they're not going to be willing to let it go.
I can see my teenage daughter, and the call will come and say, "Okay, go back to school." Why?
Yeah, this is working for me.
Well, I mean, there are things, of course, labs, and of course, there's a whole bunch of things. But even in this time, in this era, last week, my daughter is still. She will go in with the teacher, make an appointment 6 feet apart to do an art lab, right? That's still
Yeah,
required, and then come home. So, but that's by appointment. That's not, A day, B day at 10 o'clock. You have to go with a whole bunch of other people. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting,
hmm.
you know,
I think you're right. I think you're right.
exciting but terrifying, but we'll see.
There's definitely that element to it. There definitely is. So before we let you go here, Troy, just one more question here. Are there any other thoughts you have, or things you can think of that you think CIOs are looking for? Any other ideas you might have on where they could go or what they should be looking into at this point?
Yeah, and I think we hit on a bunch of those things. First and foremost, I think in this time, I think, we're in week 3 here, depending on where you live in the country.
Yeah.
For the most part, their institutions should be up and running, and you've adapted, you responded. This week and next week, if we're still in lockdown, or I think this is a good week to really take a moment and look post COVID-19, and look at what went well, where did you guys struggle, and to identify sponsors on campus or at your institution and really reach out and say, hey, let's be proactive here. I think there's a lot of different areas, online services and stuff, that, I mentioned advising, and I mentioned support, I mentioned mentoring, focusing on student retention. And then, yeah, there's the whole academic aspect of teaching and learning, what worked, what didn't work. I think a lot of companies are going to be very innovative in their online offerings. I think I would watch out for those. But lastly, data privacy. In a crisis, you're just doing all you can to maintain business continuity. I really hope that student privacy, personal information, that whole area around protecting student data and institution data, frankly, is going to be something that you're going to have to just do an audit or go through and find out where you're strong and where you're weak. So those are 3 things.
Interesting. All right, Troy. Well, thank you very much for your time. Once again, this has been Troy Martin with the BYU-Pathway Worldwide program. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for your insight. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see with you again soon. All right, Troy?
All right, Derek. Hey, thanks for your time.